Today on Forge20, we're making this bow and arrow.
2, 3, 4.
Okay, Burton, bien sûr. Let's see if we can get a piece off of here, or if we're just gonna break the knife. See, that's what we did. We chopped down to a level and I just split it off. Let's try the same thing on the other side. Keeping in mind that this is the narrow end and this is the thick end, I have a lot more to take off here than here. So we don't really actually want to go evenly. We want to judge by how thick it is. There we go. Just like that for the first one. I think that's probably enough, right? Okay, here it is. 50 pounds of weight. The little stick's just keeping it from spinning. That's all made out of cattail. And that'll be our bowstring once it stretches and dries out for a while. Alright, well, there's a test. Amazingly, the thin part held up, but just kind of, it's interesting that it popped. You know, I'll tell you, I made the first half of this when the cattail was fresh, and then it sat around for a few days. I was sick, had some personal problems for about a week, and yeah, there's a first piece that just got, I think it got too dry, is what I'm saying. I waited too long to add that second half. We're gonna have to figure out something else to do for a string. All right, maybe you can see, maybe you can't. I went with a pencil and just made some lines. They don't really mean anything, they're just kind of visual guides for me to get off enough material. And I'm going to use these files here. I mean, let's be realistic. I have a shop full of power tools. I could use those too. But I want to kind of do this with manual tools. It's not really a survival bow, but sort of the principles are there. All right, let's clean this thing up. I sanded the whole thing. I tried really hard to flatten out the insides of the limbs with the rafts and some files. I admit I did break down and use the belt sander just a little bit to get everything flat and keep those tapers going. But nothing that I've done so far you couldn't have done with rock or sand or a knife and some patience. And you can see we got a little bit of a sort of keels off to the starboard there. And that's fine because that just means that it'll go like this. This will be the upper limb and the string will sit a little bit over to port, and that will actually help keep the arrow straight. So I'm not worried about that. I think I got most of the twist out. That's kind of what made me resort to the belt sander, was just kind of wanted to make sure all the planes were in line. Oh. And I did sand the back a little bit because when I went to take the bark off and that cambrium layer, there was a few, this ash tends to tear out really easily. It's very smooth, and if you can cut it, it sort of feels like cheese. Like it's got a really smooth, tight grain consistency. I really like it. But if you're not careful, it will tear out, and then you're stuck with, let's see if I can find, I think I sanded most of them out, but which is what you want to do. I think I got one left. And usually they'll be up here near the knots, but actually I think I got them all out. Here you can see on the back, see there's a little bit of tear out there. And there's nothing we can really do except smooth around it and hope that it stops tearing. And that's kind of one of the conditions of this ash that you have to learn to work with, I guess. So maybe on the next one I'll be a little more careful. There's another little one. Oops, sorry, the sun's just blowing me up here. But we're getting close. I think we're almost ready for some knocks. And now I just gotta figure out what to do for some string, since my cattail string exploded. Okay, let's see. It's a whole nother day. It's not very nice out. Let's see if we can knock out the rest of this thing before the rain starts again. Okay, so as you can see, I've resorted to using a piece of paracord just as a temporary string. We're getting there. It's starting to bow. You can see a little bit there. So I've already marked off some places on the inside with a pencil where I think it needs a little more, and we're going to go ahead and scrape it down. Take the string off. I'm just going to use my pocket knife, and I'm going to start thinning down these limbs a little bit by scraping on the inside. And what I'm doing is I'm just looking down the limb and trying to make sure that the taper's even, which it's not really right now. Let's try some floor tilting again. Well, it's certainly getting easier to string. I'm getting more movement out here when what I really want is more movement in here. So I have to come back in, thin in these inner areas. And I think this one in particular needs a little more, like over here on this side. Maybe that'll get rid of some of the twist. Okay, it's getting a lot easier to string. I don't even need to step through it to string it anymore. And you can see now how far the limbs bend. So I think the next step is to shorten the string a little bit. Keep working kind of in these inner areas a little. I think I got the tips flexing about as much as I want right now. And you can see the string, which I haven't changed the length of the string at all. It's much easier to slack now. Okay, so I've had the bow sitting here in front of the space heater for about a week. Hey, say hello to YouTube. Today on Forge20, we're gonna spend the whole day waiting for the trains to shut the fuck up. You can see it's a little, see how this one bends more than that one? That's all right though. So let's take a minute and talk about why a bow and arrow in the first place. The bow and arrow is obviously, it's a historic weapon. It's an effective weapon. Unlike many of the other things that people like to make and try, a bow is actually useful. It shoots incredibly far. It's repeatable, and with a little bit of practice, you can get really good with it. It's also completely makeable with Stone Age technology. And anything you want to add to the mix, any kind of tool, just makes your life easier and faster. So it's entirely achievable in a survival situation, and not for nothing, but it's a lot of fun to play with. It shoots way farther than anything else I've ever made. I've wanted to make a bow for years. And I've tried a couple of times without much success. And this time I almost had the same problem, which I always do, which is that this back end split a little bit. And you can see how it over flexes now. But that doesn't really change the fact that it's a bow. I can pull back pretty far. I can get almost to my full draw. But even on a short draw, it's quite strong. I mean, I guess this one's probably ended up being a lot lighter than I wanted it to be, but I would guess 30 pounds plus easily if I draw, you know, past where I want to right now. I think building a bow gives you a really good idea about how effective some of these things are, because it sets a standard for ease of creation and effectiveness of use that becomes sort of a bar that you have to get over if you're going to carry something besides a bow as a distance weapon. And I include in that like any of the javelins, any of the things that you might throw. Why would you do that if you could carry a bow? And they're easy to make out of commonly available materials anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. So I think there's a reason that Genghis Khan had thousands of archers on horses and not thousands of lancers on horses the way some other armies had. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys had as much fun watching as I did making it. This one was actually pretty cool.
Forge 20.
Da-da-da!